Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Admiration, where we are looking at an ad in the UK for Cushelle, which is a brand of toilet paper. It's called Selfishly Soft. I didn't think I'd find myself talking about two toilet paper ads within 6 months of one another on this, but I guess actually the way they've done it has been a lot to learn, both from the original ad that we looked at, which was for Andrex, and for this one for Cushelle. So with that, shall we jump straight in and have a look at the ad?
Yeah, let's have a look at it.
Well, abracadabra. If it isn't the magnificent Jeff. He's bailed on the kiddies' party for a well-earned sit-down. And as if by magic, all is calm. Denise certainly knows how to treat herself. She's traded in her real-life hubby for the house husbands of Alaska. She's even tucked away all of the soft stuff just for her. The perfect complement to those rugged hunks. While the office listens to Karen's synergy prezzo again, Simon's taking a 20-minute intermission. In the big stall, no less. The only stall fit for such a captain of industry. Oh, and he's got his own role. Bit weird, but I like it. When it comes to that special you time, treat yourself. Cushelle, selfishly soft.
Well, I'm having a little smirk here. I'm not sure I'd ever quite have thought of toilet roll as a treat, but they've managed to do that quite well. What do people think? Do people get it?
Yeah, I think most people do. I mean, to your point of like, I didn't think of toilet paper as a treat. One of the respondents, when they were talking about what they liked about the ad, said something like, "I've never seen such a sultry toilet paper ad. I thought it was going to be something like a chocolate ad, and then it was obviously for Cushelle. So it really took me by surprise." But yeah, no, people do get it. They get the point that Cushelle's trying to communicate. They're what high quality and softness and so on, all linked to that me time in the bathroom. But let's have a look at results and we can see it in more detail.
Right. It's also quite funny because while I said you would never think of it, it also doesn't jar when they say it. So you wouldn't think of it like that, but when they say it, you're kind of like, oh, I can see how they've made that connection.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, you see it overall there, strong sales and brand impact score in the top 20, well, in the top 15% on sales impact and the top 20% on brand impact scores on all ads that we've looked at in the UK. Highly distinctive, very, very memorable. I think it does set the brand apart from others. Very emotionally engaging. I think that's like probably one of the strongest points of the ad there for sure.
Nice, yeah. It certainly looks like a good all-rounder here almost, with like lots of areas of strength, which is great to see. And if we were to dive a little bit deeper on the overall emotion,
Yeah. So obviously when you watch the ad, it's clear that it's going to drive some level of laughter. It is highly humorous. You see there the performance on the laughter reaction when asked how it left people feeling after watching it, being significantly above the norm that we see for UK ads. But it actually drives quite a lot of love as well. And that's all to do with, I guess, like the brand credentials, the koala being cute and almost like having a bit of personality. Like Cushelle hadn't given their mascot Kenny the koala like a real presence in their ad in terms of like him having a voice. It's always a narrator talking about Kenny's story and he doesn't really have an input within the ad. He's just seen as almost like a character within it. But here he very much takes the voice of the narrator and they give him an Australian accent, which makes sense because he's a koala. And I think it just kind of like adds to that like lovability of the ad overall. And obviously him as like kind of like a cute animal, just very much like we see on for Andrex and their puppies, conveys that level of like softness of the product and so on, but here delivering it in quite a cheeky way, and that's where we see the laughter overperformance there as well.
And it is quite interesting what you said about the love, because obviously we do get the first uplift in love when the koala comes. But when you talked about how they've kind of played with that brand asset over time, like you said, normally we've seen a narrator talking about what Kenny's doing. What's very interesting here is turning the tables, because now Kenny's narrating on what other people are doing. So it turns that round quite a bit. And then, like you said, the laughter, I believe the biggest laughter came from when the woman screamed at realizing the koala. Obviously, for me, the biggest laughter came from the ludicrousy of that man with his toilet roll, or as they say in the Northeast, a netty roll, which is one of my favorite things, a toilet roll in the suitcase as they open it up, which almost looks like that verbatim that you mentioned earlier. You'd think it was a wedding ring or something, but actually it's just a toilet roll, which makes sense. Now, so that makes a lot of sense. Does this work for everybody, or is there certain demographics? Usually with like toileting, we might expect some differences either by age or gender. Are there any insights there?
Yeah, men get it a lot more. So I guess like the campaign was born on the insight that pretty much like well over 3/4 of people claim to need more me time during the day, and not necessarily like being able to find that time to have it in their busy lives. And there have been studies that have revealed that people use their toilet breaks as me time, just to almost get away from like what's happening in their lives, maybe getting away from like their families if stuff's like happening at home, getting away at work as well, and just having a bit of a break. People almost like use the toilet to escape a bit. And men claim to do that more than women do. So a third of men claim to spend time in the toilet just to get some peace and quiet, whilst only like around a fifth of women do the same. So that level of, I guess, like relatability to the ad from the men's side actually makes them just like the ad more overall. When it came to the sales and brand impact score, they were placing the ad in the top 5 and 10% respectively of all ads that we've tested in the UK. And if we look at the love reaction here, when we change the view to filter out only men, we actually see that they're the drivers of the significant kind of like outperformance on the love reaction there. So 30% on love, while still finding it highly funny, but the love really takes over. Whilst when we select women, they're very much more on par with the norm for love, at 22% there. So not quite as effective in terms of like the love reaction there towards the women. And I think that comes down mostly to being less able to relate to the insight behind it than as much as men can.
That makes sense. I mean, I love a bit of me time, but I'd frankly rather do it somewhere other than the toilet.
Yeah.
It's also just to remind people that when we're looking at men and women here, what we're looking at is how men respond to this ad versus how men respond to all other ads, and how women respond to this ad versus all other ads. I know normally when people filter data, it's looking at women versus a norm, which includes men. So I think that just makes it even more clear what's going on here. Exactly as you said, is that love reaction at like 30% for men was way higher, which makes sense that they're just relating more strongly to that insight. Excellent. Shall we have a little look at some of the verbatims just to bring a little bit of colour to what people like?
Yeah, for sure. So we can see a lot of it comes in the storytelling, like the narrative behind it, the scenario, the characters, the style of the ad, but also the emotion behind it, how this story is told. So it's obviously funny, it's entertaining, it just keeps people engaged throughout. So if we have a look at some of the responses there, this person says, I think it's funny that the woman screams, although I wouldn't scream as it would probably scare it, meaning the koala. It's an unexpected ad for toilet paper, which I like. The koala is very cute, and it does highlight the idea that people want to make an event out of going to the toilet. which is yeah, I guess exactly what the brand was trying to convey. The koala, the Antipodean sense of humor, it's great. Continue the ads. It's good to have some good dry humor and just a bit of fun. I think people just appreciated the lightheartedness of it. It's obviously like a topic that people don't necessarily openly talk about, like going to the toilet, but they brought some fun and lightheartedness to it, which makes it all the more relatable to people. Again, quite similar to what we saw in the Andrex ad. They were bringing humor to almost like a slightly taboo topic, and it just invited people to just like feel more trust and like comfort for the brand.
I always come back to that little quote, which I think I mentioned before, but humor getting in under the door while seriousness is still fumbling at the handle, and that's exactly, I guess, what's gone on here. It's brought the topic to life. Everyone can relate to it. They wouldn't normally talk about it, but this is a funny way of bringing it to people's attention.
Yeah. This person, I mean, very much like you, Kim, talked about the man taking his own toilet paper because he wanted to make sure that he had the best quality and home comforts, which is exactly, I guess, like what Cushelle wanted to convey about its product benefits. Like it does come through in terms of the unaided message recall. People talk a lot more about the product softness and high quality than they do about the me time, and that's quite interesting because it's, as much as there's that tagline at the end of selfishly soft, it's very much implied that the product is soft and high quality throughout the ad. It's not like overtly stated. So that is quite quite a big point for the ad there in terms of success.
And it's sometimes the best way, right? Like just because you say the words doesn't mean that people get the message. But actually, if you can find a way of dramatizing things in such a way that that's implicitly true, that can often be a lot more powerful.
Yeah, for
Also
sure.
wanted to just jump in a little bit. I can see characters, which I assume is Kenny the koala, coming through quite strongly, which I think is really interesting because we talk a lot about brand assets, and
Yeah.
obviously not every brand asset is born equal or evolves to be equal, because some of them just inherently have greater qualities. They can be brought to life and they can act in different ways. Like a logo is not necessarily going to come through as the thing that people like most about the ad, but actually I think the koala acts as a brand cue, and you can perhaps just voice over what percentage of people use it as a brand cue, but it does more than that, right? Kenny the koala is also like one of the most loved things about the ad.
Yeah, I think like people have just grown to love him over the years. The brand was originally known as Charmin, and they had a bear, like just a regular bear, as their mascot. And when they rebranded to Cushelle, they moved over to having a koala bear. And he's been around for 14 years, and he always features on pack. He features in different Cushelle ads. Obviously, this is the first time that they're giving him a voice and a personality, so it adds to the love. And it was Kenny as a brand asset was the most recognized brand asset that led people to identify Cushelle as the brand that was being advertised. Well over half of the audience recognized Kenny. I guess like something for them to keep in mind or to be aware of is that obviously not everyone is aware of the brand, or not everyone might link the koala directly to the brand as much as it is probably their strongest brand asset. But some people recognize brands more so by logos, by names. We only actually see the brand logo, and the name of the brand is only voiced in the last 5 seconds of the ad. So if you were not aware of the brand, or you weren't so familiar with the fact that their mascot is a koala, you do miss all of that throughout the ad. But I mean, Kenny has like undeniable presence throughout, and for those who do associate the koala to the brand, that's an absolute strength for Cushelle.
And I guess the important thing is when you are using an asset that you use it everywhere, right? So
Yeah.
even for people who might not be able to remember the name of the brand when they've seen the ad, at least when they're in store and they're walking around the supermarket and they're on the toilet paper aisle, then as they walk past, they will see Kenny on the packaging, and it can trigger memories of the ad and then make them feel positive, and then it's more likely to be considered. So at least by making sure that they're using that asset everywhere, it has a chance to flourish.
Yeah.
Nice. Anything else that you wanted to add, Isa?
I don't think so. I mean, we can have a quick look at how powerful that kind of like implicit message was in driving sales for the brand. Because actually, like, there's no overt, yeah, like we were saying, there's no overt communication of the product features or the product benefits. But despite that, I guess like the approaching it in a humorous way, telling a story, really engaging with the audience, like from an emotional perspective, really drives the potential of the ad to actually generate sales for the brand. Because before watching the ad, we only had 17% of people who said that they would buy Cushelle when buying toilet paper as their brand of choice. After watching the ad, that percentage goes up to 41%. So that's quite massive. It's a 24% uplift versus a norm of 15 that we normally see for UK ads. And that's mostly coming from a drop in the Andrex brand, which is quite interesting because they've recently had very similar approaches to their communication.
And I guess it just, I mean, obviously this is in research, so it's not that we expect that percentage of people to switch brands. Like, that's why we do it against the norm. But it is a reminder of how competitive it is. So, and how important it is to stay top of mind, because obviously when Andrex was advertising, they were getting some great feelings, just like the Cushelle ad, and people would be more likely to consider Andrex. And now Cushelle's pushed itself a bit more positively top of mind to be chosen. And that's why it's important to, I guess, remain consistently and positively present, so that when the moments come when people are buying it, you know, you've not fallen to the back of the mind in those key moments. Brilliant. Well, thank you for that, Isa. Great to talk about another toilet roll ad. No, I mean, it is great to see how these categories that could be considered to be boring and uninteresting, that they're finding some of the best ways to do something more engaging.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.